So thank you all for joining us. And we're just going to give it a couple more minutes. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Academy of Hope Lunch and Learn. My name is Cherie Smith, and I am the new Donor Relations and Special Events Coordinator here at Academy of Hope, where for the past 35 years, we have been focused on and committed to supporting adults experiencing low income to gain the skills and knowledge that will enable them to pursue viable paths to economic self-sufficiency through education and career training. Before we get started, I wanted to share a few housekeeping tips. Those of you who are veterans of webinars are familiar with this very likely, but just wanted you to know that at the bottom of your screen, you have access to icons like chat. You can also raise your hand. There may be a couple of activities where our facilitator asks you to do that. And also there will be opportunities for Q&A, and you can type in your questions and we would be able to provide answers for you at that time. So what I'd like to do is share with you who our facilitator for the day is. She is fresh from delivering presentations at COABE, which is the Coalition on Adult Basic Education this week. And she is a math instructor for essential learners at Academy of Hope, and her name is Kamila Goldin. Kamila is going to engage us in a discussion and some activities that are pretty much a reflection of her class's 3-year journey from in-person paper and pencil-based learning to online learning, a transition accelerated by pandemic-related restrictions for congregate settings. And I know many of you, all of us have experienced that. So with that, I will go ahead and I will turn the presentation over to Kamila. Welcome, Kamila.
Thank you, and welcome everybody. Thank you for being here. I hope you're enjoying your lunches and that you're eating and hydrating as you enjoy the presentation. I, like Shrees introduced, I've been working at AOH now for 3 years. My background before that was in middle school special education. And I've been on the education scene in DC for about 10 years, one way or another. I have a co-presenter. This is a student of mine who has been just so helpful to me in terms of navigating this transition and really understanding what students may need from me. She's not with us here today, but she did do an interview with me. We recorded it, and so I'm going to be sharing, a lot of her insights in that way. And I will let Arlene introduce herself.
Hi, my name is Arlene Hawkins. How I came to the Academy of Hope is through my husband, matter of fact. He, because he went to Academy of Hope, and he saw that I was having a dilemma between jobs. And he said, why don't you just take a break from working and go back to school? I have already received my high school diploma, but I was one of the statistics who just got passed on and was not able to read very well or to write very well or to be able to do math. So I thought about it long and hard because I felt like I would be the oldest person, but come to find out I wasn't. I went. I was very, very scared, very nervous, and I'm glad that I.
She's glad that she did.
Hi, my name is Arlene Hawkins.
There she is again. So Eileen is one of many level one, we would call level one learners at Academy of Hope. And I would like to tell you a little bit more about all these people in this cohort called level one learners. Specifically, I'll be talking about the students in my classroom at our Ward 8 location. We also have a location at Ward 5, and every classroom, every site is a little bit different. In general, this is what can be said about the level one learners at my site. They range in ages from 19 to 75. They have various levels of formal schooling. So some of my students, some of the people in my class, they finished high school, like Arlene said, although those are more of the exception than the rule. I have students who finished all the way through 11th grade, but weren't able to complete. I have students who left school in 4th grade. Students who left school 25 years ago and they're coming back, and students who just left their K through 12 school 3 years ago and are trying to get right back on their path. Not only do the students who come to us come from K through 12 schools around the country, they also, this is not their first, oftentimes not their first stop on the adult education circuit. And so add on top of whatever somebody experienced in K through 12 and the fact that they didn't achieve the success that they wanted, they have already come back and had positive and negative experiences as adults pursuing their high school credentials. The students in my class are all Black, either American or Caribbean. And amongst all this diversity that I've shared, what could all these students have in common? It is really just comes down to what score they get on our standardized test, which is called the CASAS. The test scores that put somebody in a level one class are math scores that indicate, the skills covered in kindergarten, first, second grade, and the reading skills covered in, kindergarten, first, second grade also. That doesn't mean that the students in level one are functioning second graders who are 50 years old at all. This just means that when they sit down to take this test, once the questions start assessing past a certain math concept or reading skill, once we pass that second, third grade mark, there's a disconnect. In some cases, that disconnect is 100% accurate. Once we look at fractions or division, some of these concepts that start in third and fourth grade, I have students who that's exactly where they need me to be. But others, there's just a missing piece in how the information is presented or the question is asked. And once we can just figure out how to translate it for their brains, they move out of my class in a semester and continue on their journeys. So you've met Arlene, you've heard a little bit about the other students. Now I'm going to ask you to use your voices in typing, okay? All these students with all these histories are coming into my classroom space. It's a math class, and I know people have feelings about math. And we definitely teach technology at our school, and post-pandemic, we are not teaching but for technology. So please use the chat. I want you to imagine what associations, memories, or experiences might students bring with them with math and with technology. Use the chat. There's no wrong answer. Oh boy, I see people feel math is hard, or that people may think math is hard, it's anxious, it's scary. We don't like math. The answers are rolling in, thank you. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna just highlight a few, but I love everything that I'm reading. I see that some students probably remember life before the internet. So here's this technology that's just creeping up on lifestyles and habits. There might be discouragement that they will never understand it. There might be zero experience using a computer before coming to school. That's true for some, not all. Ooh, triggers old deep wounds. I can't tell you the number of students who share, the teachers and the phrases that were said to them 10, 20 years ago that they still carry with them. And those things come right back up when I slap a math problem in front of you and ask you to do it or call you to the board. Okay, do we have to memorize math? Technology is always changing, so how do we even keep up? And yes, lots of positive memories too, right? People have great associations with math as well. They enjoy it, right? Especially when you think back to elementary school, often math is really fun. Like counting things, walking around. Wow. Okay, so in that space, in that mental space, right? Connect with your own self when you have to learn something new, especially in front of people. Few and far between are the adults who are naturally confident and happy in that space. I count myself in that space, right? If I take a dance class, I'm there by choice. I know I want to be there. I want to learn that dance move. I really don't want to hear that I'm not doing it right, even though I know I didn't know it when I walked in. Hearing, right, that we have to improve on something, that we need new skills, exciting, also hard. It's much easier to stick with what's comfortable. And so every student who comes in is doing this amazing thing of stepping up to this challenge with math and with technology. Here's some of what I noticed about my students, and I think I've kind of touched on them. All those obstacles, barriers, traumas, my students were not super sensitive about talking about it. They were upfront and open. They're like, yes, this is what I'm bringing with me. What are we going to do about it? And that prompted me to think about, what are we going to do about it? How do I lower this barrier so that you can get in and get to your learning in my math class? I also noticed that something I had learned in teacher school didn't quite translate, which is that if you can't explain it, you don't really understand it. And I found that with my students, there was so much that they could do mathematically and otherwise, but didn't have the language to explain it, but they still understood it. And that's something that I definitely learned through interactions. And something fundamental that I came down to is really think about this first grade reading level. In a world where text is all around us, not being able to read, right? Adult literacy, even newspapers, they're written for what, a fifth grade level, they say? We are looking at systematically a real challenge engaging with instruction in the world when it's text-based. And I wanted to know how to work past that. In general, the goal for the tasks that I bring up in my math class so that everybody can access them is that they are low floor, high ceiling. And by that we mean really no way to get it wrong. And there's really no way to get it right. You just share, for example, what you notice and what you wonder. I would love now, just for a couple people in the meeting, to take a little risk. Look at this image. You can raise your hand with a little raise hand icon, and don't go crazy, give other people a chance. But share with us either something you notice in this image or something that you wonder. And I'll let Charisse unmute folks. So I'm looking for an attendee with their hand raised. I'm gonna give people a little bit of time. What do you notice about this picture? Okay. Yes, Danelle, thank you for coming to the stage. What's something that you notice or wonder?
I wonder why there is only one type of toilet paper and why there's so much of it.
Thank you. I too wonder that. Okay, Bonnie. You have to unmute, Wani.
I wonder about the large supply, the ample supply of this product.
What do you wonder about it? Is that like a COVID related wondering? Like I heard there was a toilet paper
just
shortage.
where are the other products?
Yeah.
Where are the other products? And first thing was this product, immediately it all looked the same, so I assume it is all the same product, but there's no other variety or choice.
Yeah, there is a cat toilet paper monopoly. Thank you. Take one more notice or wondering. Sayonara. You're up.
So what I'm wondering about is what will prompt somebody to pick up from the upper shelf than the lower ones.
Like, how will they get there?
No, like, you know, if somebody's standing there, would I stretch my hand to pull a pack from the lower shelf or from the middle one or from the upper one? Like which one, you know, is it the one that's in my outreach, like the one that I can just, you know, or is it the one, or will I go lower or will I go higher to get back?
Yeah, and that makes me wonder, right, which shelf is going to empty out first? Thank you to all the wonderful volunteers. We could keep going and we could go much deeper. But I see, oh, Deneen. Okay, Deneen. Come on up.
I just wanted to know, why are there none missing? Do people not need bathroom tissue?
Another excellent wondering. Thank you, Deneen. I'm going to send some folks back to the audience. What is going on with this toilet paper? Everybody who has shared, you have engaged with this. You're thinking about the scale. You're asking me, how does this fit in my life? Like if I was standing in the aisle and I saw this, what would I think? All of us, no matter how excellent or terrible we think we are at math, can start to engage with these questions and hear what other people are wondering. That makes it so much easier to feel like you can engage and jump in. And then it can guide us towards how many toilet paper rolls are there, right? You can get into like toilet paper math, like 6 jumbo rolls and 12 super rolls. And we can all find different ways to answer these questions or to explore, to survey, whatever. The options are limitless, and we're calling people in by making this a task where we all have something valuable to contribute. And that is one of the core aspects of my class, because I want everybody to be able to contribute. I did not come up with that insight. That insight is part of a very strong, very powerful educational framework, which is based on actually disability justice movements and the idea of universal design. And that if we build so that people can access buildings or learning activities or experiences, we broaden who it's available to and enrich in the quality. In education, universal design for learning guides us to really consider, are we offering more than one way for learners to engage with the learning content? Are we offering multiple ways of representing what we're trying to teach, visual, auditory, kinesthetic? And are we allowing people to show us what they've learned in a way that is authentic to them? I may not be great at writing essays. That doesn't mean I don't know how to persuade you of something. Let's say that was the topic. So this is kind of the guideposts. And as you can imagine, it's an art, it's a science, and technology can play a huge, huge part in making each of these buckets better for students and teachers, right? If I can play a YouTube video or read an article or play with like manipulatives online, these are all things that are robustly available all in one place due to technology. Of course, it doesn't happen automatically, but technology is crucial in helping to really fulfill the promise of equitable access for all learners. Here's the other buzzword that we're here for today: digital literacy. Digital literacy is a really rich topic. It's more than just computers. It's more than just smartphones. Ultimately, the way that we approach it, digital literacy is about how we are able to engage in our community, in our society. Can I educate myself using technology? Can I keep in touch with my family and friends using technology? Can I vote? Can I use my voice? Can I travel? All these things. Create art. But before we can get there, right, there's building blocks. Some of those building blocks just involve comfort using it, right? Can I use this tool? Do I know how to get from what I want to making this machine cooperate? Can I navigate it? Can I do more than one thing? Do I know how to troubleshoot? And before that, it's just the access, and people alluded to it in the chat. Do I have exposure? Do I have practice? Do I have support? At AOH, especially at level 1, this is what I find myself addressing the most. We're building towards those higher level aspects of digital literacy, but we are truly trying to start with just exposure, competence, access. The curriculum we use is a phenomenal curriculum. It's called North Star Digital Literacy. It was created out in Minnesota during the Great Recession and really helps assess where learners are and has very engaging tools to help move them along. I dropped that name there in case you're interested in learning more. There we go. So here's the story arc. We had technology in the classroom before 2020, partially because we were just trying to, get student emails and build ourselves as a 21st century school. There was a fire at Ward 8 that pushed us remote. COVID came along, it pushed us remote. And so we had to really step up our integration and use of technology and of supporting students and being able to access it. And moving forward, right, there's no going back. So I have a lot of question marks here in 2021 and beyond. Where can we go? What heights can we reach? Go ahead, and I want you to use the chat again. Anticipate, I'm about to tell you, right, the soundbite of the challenges and some of the triumphs. But I'd like you to just predict, what do you think are some of the hardest parts, knowing what you know about the level 1 learners, knowing what you know about how complex digital literacy can be? What do you think are some of the challenges that we encountered? And what do you think are some of the successes that we might have encountered as well? Go ahead and use the chat. No wrong answer. See a challenge in the chat: reliable access to the internet. Huge. Oh, I see one of our teachers commenting, trouble getting into Zoom. How relatable is that, right? Hey, auntie, your microphone is muted. We can't hear you. Okay, Brian, logging onto a platform, internet. Is your computer ready for it? Training teachers and students, all of this takes time. Do people even have a computer? Yes, thank you, Julia. Welcome. Sharing technology with other people, Wi-Fi connections unstable. Yes. Okay. The things that are coming through the chat are exactly what AOH staff members and students at all levels of the organization have been staying up late at night trying to figure out how do we bridge this to support our students? And yes, Annette, it is scary. It is the unknown. And in a time when everything around us is very unknown and very scary, it's a special kind of emotional work to really go on this journey together. Just reading the chat. I hope you guys are too. Some triumphs is being more comfortable with the computers now. Beautiful. Here's what I got. One of the challenges is the one that I iterated at the beginning, is that online and offline, if we have text saturated environments, that universal design pillar of access, right? Of are you representing this in a way that your students can perceive is challenged. That happened in the classroom, happens online. There is so much technology coming out every moment, every semester. We're trying something new, as you saw by my, collage of icons. It's a lot. It's a lot to try to pick up the new thing. And like some of you guys anticipated, there was a wide range of needs around technology access. So that Wi-Fi, the computer literacy, and also the platform literacy. And that was for both staff and students, right? Teachers don't automatically download up-to-date education technology when they sleep. Yes. Housekeeping note, as you're sending your chats, and yes, I will share the slides and recording after, absolutely. But as you are sending your chats, can you make sure that in the to field, it says to, and that you choose all panelists and attendees. That way, not just I, but all the fellow attendees can read each other's answers. Again, where it says to in your chat bar, you're going to make sure it says all panelists and attendees, and that should just be your setting for the next time that you respond. Thank you. Okay. It wasn't all bad, as you guys really, anticipated. From great triumphs, or from great struggles and challenges comes the insights and the fact that we overcome. We were able to so increase our program offerings. Different times of day for learners whose schedules previously didn't allow them to come to the building at a certain time. We secured so many hotspots, so many laptops, so many Chromebooks. We were able to distribute these and give students access. So a lot of those challenges, right, were not as severe a year into the pandemic as they were when we started or before. And in the same way that there's all these new technologies that can be so challenging, there's also all these new technologies that fundamentally change how people can access their education. And that is a good thing. And finally, I was going to put the stat when I share the final slides, it'll be there. But on the standardized tests, we've on CASAS, level 1 learners have shown huge amounts of growth. The 2 cohorts at our school who showed the most growth in their testing during the time of the pandemic were level 1, the lowest level, and levels, I think, 4 and 5, the highest levels. And so despite all these challenges, people are learning, people are growing. And that is what I want to celebrate and share, having been sort of on the ground level of it. If anyone is going to have challenges accessing technology, it's going to be level 1 students. It's where you have the most stacked, stacked challenges and intersection of systems that are really not designed to support you. And so what we can learn from the level 1 student success is absolutely going to inform best practices for learners at all levels. Just level 4, not 5. Thank you. Not to say that everybody wasn't working very, very hard. It was just affirming to see that, our school's still doing the work and still able to reach students. Okay. I see that there's a hand raised. Jack, go ahead. Tell you what, I'm going to lower your hand and you may use the Q&A or the chat to share what you have to say. All right. Broad strokes. I'm about to take you on a whirlwind. Just strap in. Know that there is 50 slides I cut for every slide that I saved, just to be able to give you, the viewers, a little bit of insight into what our journey has looked like. Okay. When I started at AOH, the primary integration of education technology was this platform called Essential Education. It was really geared towards the higher level students, and it had practice classes, practice GEDs, and a lot of self-paced instruction. 2018, my first year here, is also when we first got email addresses for students through Gmail, and we piloted a very cool adaptive learning platform called IXL. There was also a stint of partnering with Workforce and using a really, really cool platform called Burlington English, which is designed, for teaching English, but it works so well for building content knowledge and digital literacy for, natives, not English language learners, native English speakers. Thank you. That year, I also tried out Google Sites just for my class because I wanted a place on the internet where we could store all of our information. The level 1 learners, I do want to shout out, we spent a very long time working on IXL access on their phones. And once they had access to this website, that's kind of like a game, it gets harder or easier based on how you do. I had students, clocking 18 hours in a week of practice, an individual student. Students waking up at 3, 4 in the morning and they're like, I'm bored. So you know what I do? I practice my math, practice my reading, which is just, it's wonderful when you give tools that actually help people do what they are trying to do. Integrating digital literacy was also a matter of kind of pulling back from the digital and just thinking about literacy, right? How do we orient people and teach people the vocabulary and the concept knowledge that they need to be successful? Here's an example. The calculators, these beautiful TI 30XS calculators, over $100 each, are the calculator we have at school. It's a robust calculator. It doesn't have an equal button. The button says enter. Maybe not a huge deal, but when I'm starting to just build foundational skills and I say, hey, use this calculator, we're going to practice using the calculator to do a calculation. Where's the equal sign? So much brain power goes into scouring. It's like a word search on this thing to find the button that will make the machine give you the answer. We can adapt and secure a different technology, a different calculator that gives us just what we need. A big equal sign, big buttons that I can see without my reading glasses if I happen to have, a need for reading glasses. This is a small change that when you think about access, makes a big difference. And it really only comes out of knowing exactly what your students need and what their stumbling blocks are. Otherwise, why wouldn't you think that the more powerful a calculator, the better the resource it is? There's also, the literacy of the computer. How does the computer communicate with you? In the same way that a reading teacher will often take time with their students to look at nonfiction text features, right? We grab a bunch of maps and say, what do these maps have in common? Oh, they have a title, they have a compass rose, they have a scale. And we learn that this is a predictable feature of maps. How about this book? Oh, it has a table of contents, it has headings, it has graphs. We practice, getting literate in this particular type of text. The computer is no different. For example, something that was huge for us was realizing that your mouse changes shape, your mouse pointer changes shape to tell you, the user, what you can do in interacting with the machine, right? If it turns into a capital I, it means you can type there. If it turns into a hand, it means you can click and it's a link. Oh boy. This happens in class too. Goodbye, cat. So that was one part of it. And then the other picture on this slide is here because I wanted to show you that in those initial classes, really deconstructing even the outside of the computer meant this is a word search of buttons. We were putting stickers on our keyboards so we could remember, you know, if I need to log in, I need Alt Control Delete. Where do I find those keys? Oh, here they are. They're the ones with the stickers on them. Arlene, I asked her, you know, how did it feel when I was giving you all this technology even before we went remote? What was that like for you?
I felt like throwing my phone out the window that first semester. But I taught Miss Kamila a new trick on the phone, how to get people's phones to talk to you. And that was so cool that the other students like that. You know, you push the button and the phone will start talking to you. Once we got into IX.
I will say, Arlene, you know, she was very upfront about her dyslexia, her challenges. And so she already brought with her so much insight into how assistive technology, right? Features that are there to help people with disabilities can help so many more people. I didn't know about that until Arlene showed it to me, but now I have it on my phone. All my students have it on their phones. And I'm now learning and trying to figure out, how do I make this part of all of our computers, right? Like, what tools are out here to really help us access our devices? What was that like for you? Our school experimented with many, many, many different learner management systems and platforms. We tried Google Classroom. We tried Padlet. Each of these had their pros and cons, and we didn't know upfront which one was going to work. This has been very, very experimental. Google Classroom initially challenging because students, if they came back for a second semester, sometimes they would be created a new email address for them, and then we didn't know which was the one that they would be able to use. We didn't really have clarity on how we were going to reset passwords if somebody got locked out. Just things that until you try to build an IT infrastructure for a school, you don't anticipate, but helps you really walk that fine line between technology enhancing the learning process and technology hindering the learning process. The graphic scrolling is the Padlet that my students and I built in technology class. The earliest things we did, we would create like art pieces using Microsoft Paint, and that helped them practice clicking and precision of clicking, and kind of just learn how to interact with the computer. We made our own versions of icons so we could recognize them and know what the computer would do if we clicked them. The students did their typing and uploaded short pieces. We took our own pictures, uploaded those, eventually shared, you know, our favorite restaurants, found them and connected the links. And this is just like small building steps that allowed us to really collaboratively go from just the use to a little bit of that community engagement and community building skills. What we're looking at here is my setup during emergency remote instruction, right? We said that first semester when the pandemic was truly upon us, it wasn't really distance learning. It was emergency remote instruction, right? There's practitioners who build their whole careers doing distance learning, and it is rich and complex. And what we were doing was making document cameras out of cardboard boxes and champagne bottles and propping our iPads up on cardboard boxes. I was living in a studio apartment at the time. My workspace was also my kitchen table. It was a lot of learning and troubleshooting for the instructors as much as it was for students. And then figuring out how to support the students at the same time has given me tremendous respect for IT support people, and also really highlighted the need to understand how to give support to the population you're supporting. On the left, I got Facebook Messenger because some of my students were on Facebook, and it let us, you know, do video chats and practice taking pictures of their computer screen so they could send it to me so that I could tell them where to click. We sort of bootstrapped instructional videos, so we didn't have to repeat the same help.
We're going to be showing you how to connect your school Chromebook to your school-issued T-Mobile hotspot. To start, make sure that your hotspot has battery and is turned on. Swipe up and find the icon that says Mobile Hotspot. Click on it. Toggle the option at the top of the page so that it's blue. This turns.
I speak slowly and clearly and speaking from experience, right? As any of us who've ever tried to help somebody with tech support, who knows what you take for granted that the other people, whoever you're helping, doesn't know, right? Is it on? I think it's on, it's plugged up. Oh, okay, how do we break that down? How do you know if it's on? Is the machine on or is the hotspot on? These are like little nuances that truly make or break whether somebody can access a class. This is the Padlet that we used in the second semester just to show you. So we did Google Classroom, tried Padlet. And now I want to fast forward to, a year and a half into the pandemic. We're learning how to help use technology to lower those barriers to entry instead of to raise them. This year, we started off with they were here before, but the team grew and our contract and our partnership with them grew, a dedicated team of IT support that students could call and get help. Teachers could call and get help. Game changer, because now teachers are spending a little bit less of their time doing tech troubleshooting and a little bit more of their time preparing instructional materials and teaching. We got a single sign-on platform that puts all the student passwords securely in one spot. And so that's like their all access card to any website, any tool on the computer. They don't have to remember and write down 16 passwords for 16 learning programs. We went from, Padlet or Google Classroom to Schoology. This is kind of like Blackboard, created by teachers for teachers. It's got some structure, it adds some consistency, and is now where we can host and keep all of the lessons and materials we create. Kami is a Chrome extension that we found, piloted, and then invested in. It allows students to edit PDFs and annotate PDFs in their browsers. So if I want to upload a worksheet, they can type on there and send it back without having to download it to their computer first. They can also highlight text and have it read aloud. This is so cool because of that literacy challenge. Like now they have this access piece that they didn't have before. Tech support is, it's ongoing. We haven't figured it out. On the left is a digital training manual that a couple of the teachers put together. Arlene actually helped us edit it and update it, and teachers from both sides, so that there's a reference that is picture heavy and clear that students can refer to when they're helping each other as much as when they're talking with their teachers or IT on the phone. On the right, that's me last week, video chatting with a student who finally got his technology set up. He works from his home in his bed, but you can see he has an extra large keyboard, which is super helpful for him. He has cerebral palsy, and the tiny keyboards on a laptop are sometimes he'll push the buttons, and if you don't react fast enough, you type like 16 of one letter. Our school was able to invest in something specifically to lower the physical barrier there for the student who's otherwise quite tech savvy to be able to use the computers that we've distributed. This is me 3 weeks ago as we started our hybrid instruction. You can see I have a fancy conference camera that picks up the sound from anybody anywhere in the room. No more cardboard boxes and champagne bottles. There's 2 students in the room with me there. Other students are projected on the wall. This is not ideal. Okay, this is not ideal, but it was a success. That was actually a really good attendance that day, the best that I had had all semester. And we're in it together. A lot of these students, we've been working together. They've seen me grow and I've seen them grow for 2 or 3 years. It's just slowly climbing our CASA scores up and building our competencies with technology and math. Where are we going in the future? Okay, learning about assistive technology has blown my mind. Check this out. This is a feature that comes native on all Microsoft computers. So yes, we have a hodgepodge of Chromebooks and laptops out there among the students because that's what we had. look at this tool, which happens to only be available on Microsoft devices. I can change the size, change the text contrast.
Learning Tools Immersive Reader creates a reading experience that adds accessibility and comprehension for learners of all ages and
I paused. Anyways, in this video, you'll see I split the syllables. You can color the parts of speech. You can mask so that you focus on just one bit. This technology is in the browser on Microsoft. So websites, text-heavy websites and emails, the students can now actually have them read to them just in the browser. What I would have done for a tool like this 2 years ago. One other feature I want to highlight about that keyboard that we got for that student is that the keys are rearrangeable. And so if somebody's barrier, right, is really having a hard time remembering the QWERTY layout and hunting for the letters that they need to type in the chat during class, why not just put the keys in alphabetical order? We are much more familiar with that. Find the letters you need, keep it pushing. My second to last slide, and then I absolutely want to have conversation. Going back to this idea of what is equitable access for all learners. And we asked Arlene, what advice do you have for the school as it continues to grow and evolve?
Show them all the different techniques in a computer that will help them to learn. It's devices on the computer will read to you, will give you a definition of something, will also show you a picture or something. Let them know that it is tools out there on the computer that can help a person like myself. That's why I was so eager to take that business class, to let someone else know that you can do it just like I did. I'm so.
She was saying she was so grateful that we spent the many, many, many hours outside of class that we spent trying to find the right tools for typing in discussion posts, for reading her textbook online. It was absolutely a labor of love together. And so as we turn towards, what comes next, and what I've learned is that successful integration is going to come when the schools, right, can integrate education technology, like these platforms designed for learning, information technology, the systems that support all the computers and devices that you're using, and assistive technology, which has decades of innovation and dedication to making sure that everybody can access the common goods in society. I thank you so much for bearing with me this whirlwind. And I would love to open it up for any sort of questions, comments, ideas that this sparks. This is the beginning of hopefully a long and robust conversation. And I'm glad that you're part of it. I will answer this one question in the Q&A. A lot of food for thought. You may type, you may also raise your hand and speak, please. I would love to hear your voice. Someone, I'm answering this in the Q&A. Somebody asked if our team has had success with the T-Mobile hotspots. They seem to be working well. There's definitely more than one T-Mobile hotspot out there, and some of them work better than others. So please feel free to connect if you would like to talk shop a little bit more, because we're all doing on-the-ground research and can help each other. Yeah. Well, thank you for attending. Thank you, everybody. Yes, I see somebody has a question.
Thank you all so much for attending. Please feel free to raise your hands and, put your questions in chat if you're a little shy. We'll try to keep up with everyone. We've got a pretty strong turnout today. Thank you all so much for sharing, but we'd love to hear your feedback, your experiences, any questions that you might have. We'll keep it open for a couple of minutes. Thank you. Kamila?
Oh yes, I'm sorry. I'm reading the Q&As.
Okay.
Yeah, the features, I don't know, we are a blended school right now, a little bit of Microsoft, a little bit of Google. I encourage you, to try to find out who's making those decisions and connect with them in your own building. A lot of this people just don't know. A couple of resources, especially for Jamie, if you're still on, because I see you typing. Yes, CAST and AEM. Have been huge for me. The accessible educational materials is a project of CAST. They have a once a month happy hour online where they showcase different technologies and answer our questions. And that has been where I've learned the most. They also have an entire online framework, a community of practice to Rachel, your question in the Q&A. I'm not quite sure what a community of practice is, but I know that CAST has an entire platform of research-based best practices for integrating those three, ed tech, IT, and AT. But I think a community of practice is something that would be wonderful to find, create, join, be a part of. Stephen, I have not yet connected with DCPL's Adaptive Technologies Division, but I'm happy to know that it exists. And I will. Lots of questions. What challenges are you still facing? And after the pandemic, what will I still use in my classroom? Challenges I'm still facing, I think, are challenges looking at our ability to scale and really, so how do we find what works best for cohorts of our learners? And how do we deploy it across the school? Especially when teachers need as much support learning about this technology before they can facilitate for students. And so that kind of the time to explore that and the resources and the expertise to enrich ourselves definitely feels like a challenge. After the pandemic, I will still use computers in my classroom. The ability to screen read, to annotate, to give individual students different tasks, but nobody knows because it's just what link they click inside the homework. That differentiation has been really amazing. So most of them. Thank you for the question. And I don't have my email on here, but when we send this out, my email will be there. So you're welcome to please keep the conversation going, be in my community of practice. No, we didn't mention attending AOH is restricted to currently just residents of Washington, D.C. We would love to be able to take it broader, but right now must be a DC resident in order to attend.
It's a great question here about assessment, Kamila. Beyond North Star, how can you assess digital literacy improvement? I know that that's something that you've talked about for a minute too.
That is a rock star question. For me, at this point, it has mostly been anecdotal, right? Like the phone calls where the students say, hey, Miss Kamila, this other student was having trouble logging on, but she called me and I helped her. So we didn't have to bother you. That is coming, that specific quote came from like a student who last term, we spent almost an hour a week just practicing going to Clever, going to Zoom. And so seeing just the growth in that way is huge. I know that that's not the type of data that ultimately leads to like recommendations and policy changes. But I think attitudes and problem solving skills, and I don't know if we could test like how much people start to sweat when they accidentally click the wrong thing on the screen versus if you just don't panic and click the back button. I think that there's a lot there that's like effective. But that is, a great question to continue trying to answer.
One of the things that we've talked about, Kamila, is the concept of the mathematical practices and how they align with digital literacy and how they support the instruction of both. And I was wondering if you could share a little bit about that, math teacher that you are.
Sure. The standards of mathematical practice are part of the Common Core, and they look at, the key practices of a strong mathematical thinker. It includes things like attending to structure, reasoning, abstracting quantitatively, noticing patterns, knowing which tools to use to solve a problem, which gets at defining your problems, right? What am I trying to do before I panic, right? What am I trying to do, and do I know ways to get there? When I don't know what to do, what do I do? Like, how do I tinker? Tinkering is something that you do if you're curious and you have an inkling that you can be successful. Tinkering is something we can practice. And so I think that one connection is just that ability for students to sort of think procedurally, notice patterns, right? Notice consistencies in where certain controls are on the screen. Usually the user, if you're logged in, it's going to be in the top right. Usually the two sides on a web page are not the main content or idea. That structure, like, it's about computers, but it builds that attention to detail and that precision that also serves us mathematically. Yeah.
And we're coming up on a couple of more minutes. So if you guys would like to either get out a couple more questions, raise your hand, chat. But one of the things that we are very, very focused on here at Academy of Hope is not only the importance of digital literacy from the perspective of supporting instruction, but one of the things that is very, very important to us as well is how it supports our students and our learners in terms of being able to develop the skills that will help them to be competitive across a number of careers. One of the studies, if you guys have not seen it, that speaks to this, the importance of digital literacy and fluency for low literacy learners and their outcomes in terms of employment, is the May 2020 National Skills group. And we'll include that link and document for those who might be interested in seeing it as well when we send out the PowerPoint. And we have one more minute. And if we have any other questions or comments.
I would like to answer one more question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you for amplifying Laura's question. How do I empower my students to seek help from each other and to help each other? There's a couple of key things that go into that. The first one is just like when we're working with anybody, we're like mentoring by how we act. So if I have a math problem, or if a student has a math problem, how do we tackle it? If they have a question, do it out loud, right? That's a good question. I'm not sure. How should we start? Oh, you think we should start with this? Okay, what would you do next? Like that basic, just slowing it down and really reveling in each step of the problem solving process so that none of those steps are so scary. Another big thing, Zoom recently added a feature. You can enable it in the master settings where you can remote support. And so with one click, you can offer students control of, you say offer support, control desktop, and then that student's screen is shared with everybody. And you have remote control. And so instead of just doing it, right, you don't solve the problem to get rid of it. You solve the problem to teach the students how to solve the problem. And so if you can't figure out how to get to the homework, don't just take them to the homework. Like, walk us through, how do we, okay, we're trying to get to the homework. Where does the homework live? Oh, it lives on Schoology. Okay, do you remember how we get to Schoology? And by slowing it down and really opening the process up in front of people, you're also modeling the tools so that they can do it themselves. So that when somebody says, oh my God, where's the homework? They have an example to build off of. Thank you, Brian. I appreciated your comments. Thanks, Daniel. Laura, I hope that helps, but if you want to hear more about that, like, I have so many thoughts, and I believe really strongly in practices that encourage students to support one another, because that's really the only sustainable future.
Thank you so much, Kamila. What an enlightening presentation for us. And I learned a lot and have learned a lot as I've worked with you through this. As I mentioned, we will be providing the video as well as the PowerPoint for all of the attendees today. So look out for that in your email. It will include Kamila's contact information. As she said, she is interested in establishing a community of thinkers and people who are interested in figuring out how to do this more effectively and efficiently. And we certainly hope that you join us on that journey. So thank you again for joining us. And I hope everyone has a great rest of the week and a great weekend coming up. Take care.
Don't end the meeting, Sharice. I have to save the chat.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody.